I've been programming for over a decade, have experience in 3D modeling and animation, and have even released a game of my own. Yet, I'm still not working at a game studio. In fact, they won't hire me. Why not? Let's tell the story.
I'm not here to brag about all of my achievements in games. I certainly have a very long way to go with both my learning and my track record, but I'm not coming from nothing. I have an IT management level job in the energy industry. I've worked on multiple games projects, 2 of which were canceled or put on indefinite hiatus. I know a thing or two, and I'm certainly someone that would be able to contribute a lot of value to any game development team.
That said, no one has been willing to hire me at a similar compensation level and role to what I have and earn right now. I work in the energy industry, and I have a software architect position there. To get the same thing in the games industry, I would need to have equivalent games industry experience. But I work mostly for energy companies over the years, so that doesn't translate perfectly. And I've had a couple conversations with games industry recruiters, and they raised some valid points about that lack of transferable experience, but that ultimately leads me to the dilemma of having to choose between, do I take a pay cut and a step down from the upper level role that I have now in another industry, just so that I can work in games? I would have to work on someone else's game working at a studio as well. Not to mention, I would have to give up probably my time working at Elega Corporation, my side business. Oh, you're watching the Elega Corporation YouTube channel, by the way. You probably should subscribe.
You'll hear a lot of advice out there on how to get started if you're early in your career. But what if you're like me? You're a bald guy in your mid-30s and you've already gotten a start in another career. One of those recruiters I spoke with even told me,
"It's not my job to get people from outside the games industry into the games industry."
What? I thought the recruiter's job was to find where the talent is and bring it forward to interview for the job. Look, the industry definitely has its problems, and in my particular situation where maybe I'd like to work at a studio, it's not an easy problem to solve. I can't just accept this idea that I'd have to earn less money, start at a lower rung in the corporate ladder, have less control over what I'm working on than I have in my current full-time job or my side business, and deal with all the risks and problems associated with the games industry as a whole. Employment is a two-way street, and the deal needs to work for me just as much as it needs to work for the studio that may hire me. It's no secret that the video game industry has its problems, the most famous of which is crunch time. Crunch time can occur close to the deadlines for locking games in for the release date, but it can also happen throughout projects, regardless of what their status is. Game studios have also had issues with tech bro or misogynistic cultures with trash working conditions for women.
There is truth to that idea as well, by the way, that it's only certain game studios that have toxic cultures or have issues with how they treat women and minorities, or that they overwork their employees and underpay them in terms of compensation. There are good studios out there. There are good places to work.
The greater problem is that the competition to get into those places will be even higher than getting into the trashier studios with nasty problems. Working in the games industry has, over the years, become very similar to trying to work in the Hollywood movie industry. Just a couple decades ago, it was seen as unrealistic to expect to become some kind of movie star. And these days, it is increasingly unrealistic to expect to become a major studio game developer.
The competition for these good positions is fierce, by the way. If there's these cyclical times in the industry where there's layoffs going on, like lately, then it's going to be the gaming industry veterans who end up snatching up these jobs, not someone coming from another industry like myself who lacks that direct game studio experience.
In short, trying to get into the games industry as a developer or artist is definitely no fun. If you're young and fresh out of school, it's at least possible if you've done well in your studies and have an outstanding portfolio to show off in job interviews. When you're young and inexperienced, or just earlier in life, it's easier for you to accept a bit of a lower salary and lifestyle in order to pursue what you love. However, it's in this way that the games industry very subtly engages in age discrimination. As if it's not bad enough that you're not able to make a high salary in games relative to what you can do in other industries, they're also more likely to be snatching up young people with little or nothing to lose.
Here in my description, or the way that I word this, you can see the incentives for exploitation forming. You have young people fresh out of school who are desperate to work in this creative industry, studios that are flush with cash who are willing to take advantage of that. And you can see how that's a recipe for disaster forming very rapidly.
Okay, so again, lower salary, industry problems, less creative freedom. One of the major positive things I can think of is that I'd get to be a part of a team and make something larger than just something I could do by myself.
Well, the truth is, I could do that outside of a studio as well. I could go out, raise money with investors, or I could launch a Kickstarter campaign to kick off a big effort to fund a game. And assuming I'm successful in raising that money, I could hire a team and go all out in a huge, ambitious effort. But if I did that, or anyone in my position who does that, there's trade-offs to that. You have to answer to those investors or answer to those Kickstarter backers. And it's other people's money that you're operating off of, at which point you have kind of a responsibility in how you utilize those things.
Let's look at my current setup. I have the one-man team aspect, sure, but I also have a full-time income from the energy industry in my personal wallet, a small business with digital products that generate revenue, full creative freedom to make whatever games I want, and the possibility of growing Elega Corporation's business income in the future by making more content that consumers would want. Elega doesn't have any corporate debt. We don't have to answer to any investors other than me, the owner of the company, and I can always ramp up on hiring part-time employees and contractors when I need to on a project-by-project basis.
There's definitely drawbacks to going it completely solo whenever you're an indie game developer, and I completely get that. I have to balance all of these different things. I have to be marketing and doing these things to be known and putting out content. I need to work on the game. I need to program. I need to make art. I need to contract with other artists and musicians and all these kinds of things. It's one person being an entire team. At any time, I, in theory at least, have the option to throw that away and to go join a team, finally take that pay cut that I was talking about, or go raise money. And assuming I was successful with that, I could do these big giant things, but it's that creative freedom and that autonomy and that control over these projects that is really, really appealing to me, and really should be appealing to any indie game developer. The whole reason that you're an indie, or a solo indie especially in the first place, is so that you can try things that otherwise it's unclear whether those things would be commercially successful. I'm in a good spot here with my side company, Elega Corporation, and this YouTube channel, and you as the audience, and all the things that I'm doing here on my own. I get to really see if I know whether or not I'm going to make something that you folks like. Whatever success I have, I can take that money and I can reinvest it, either reinvest it back into new projects, or I can make other investments in other industries and create cash flow for the company, which progresses Elega Corporation toward being truly independent and not requiring money from any outside source.
When I think about Calling Kingdom, my first game, this is a game that simply wouldn't exist without me breathing life into it. I wanted to make a fantasy city builder, and in 2019, there basically wasn't anything like it that I could find. It hasn't sold well, I admit, but look at the creative beauty of the fact that it now exists. It's an option for players out there. It's the non-combat, economic-focused, fantasy, turn-based experience I wanted. It's weird, it's unconventional, and I love it. It's the kind of thing I wouldn't get to do working for someone else, or having to be under the pressure to make a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to sell more copies of Calling Kingdom. Feel free to pick the game up from the link in the description.
It's important that if we have these ideas and these games that we dream about, that we go and we build them so that the world has the option to play them. And then the world can decide whether or not that idea should grow into something bigger. I think it's best for everyone that I just remain a solo indie dev for right now. Thanks for watching. Make sure that if you want to see more videos like this one, you subscribe and hit the like button on this video. Folks, I'll see you next time.